Sorry, it's a bad time for a lecture. I was in the road in 2 hours. Right, shall we start? We were discussing about this segmental reporting. I hope you are ready to start. Okay. Colombo. Operating segments. Here we are discussing about what is the role behind a counter to identify reportable segments. Right? In organizations, we may have many operating segments for decision making purpose. Right? You should understand what's the role you are supposed to perform under this standard. First, we need to understand why we are having this type of standard. The reason for having this type of standard. Why we are having this? The segmental information is that important for decision making. What do you mean by segmental information? Any idea? That it is a thing together. Local break that lecture mode again in English. Make critical standard එක. Exam එකේ ලකුණු like 15 marks already given question එක. මේ question එක පාඩම් කරගෙන අපේ හරි ලියාගෙන ඇවිල්ලා exam එක කොට දාන්න පුළුවන් question එකක් තමයි මේකේ. ඒතරට easy. Not like earning question, right? Not like fair value of consolidation. This is a favorite area. Students can earn more marks, right? If you are giving 15 marks, 99% sure there's a question related to this for 15 marks. This 15 marks, average, maybe 12 marks, 100% students are taken. So to make a wow, on that exam, pass in the may part taking question next. You have to attempt. You have to attempt with understanding. That's very simple and straightforward. That's why I'm telling it's very easy area. You can understand it. We need to understand what's the reason for learning this as a student. And before that, we need to understand what do you mean by segmental reporting. Once we are giving operating segments in the financial disclosures, what's the reason for having it? What are the benefits behind that? as stakeholder, as an investor, having segmental information for your decision making. What's the benefit they are enjoying? What's the benefit they do have? One of the segmental information how much can benefit? Huh? One of segmental information, yeah. My idea can see the disclosure. I will share some of the disclosures, right? Once you are doing annual report marking, segmental information deal at the end, product mark some annual report award. Right? If it is a listed entity, if it is a group company, consolidated segmental information is a compulsory disclosure. Right? Then what do you mean by that? What's the benefit behind this segmental information? One of the benefit make. Yeah, but we can. When the main class is many in then it's not bad. Separate segment type avashya listed guard. What's the reason for having separate segmental information? We are having the ultimate number, then we can see the overall picture of organization. Right. So he's telling, your friend telling, what are the departments who are underperforming and be identified through segmental information. Otherwise, you are having different segments within the organization. Some of the sectors not performing, but it will be nullified with other departments, other segments. End of the day, stakeholders are not getting that picture. That underperforming department will be spreaded. That will ruin the overall organization. That will reduce the overall company stated capital. To reduce that, to identify this critical non-performing segments, it is required to give segmental information. Right? That's the benefit of having segmental information. As an owner of a group of companies, profit you need to go to. You need to refer the segmental information disclosure. That's very important. Right? You are having maybe more than 50 segments within the organization. You need to understand what are the non-performing segments. Once you are having non-performing segments, what are the decisions you can make? Maybe you can close down that. Or else, maybe you can take some turnaround decisions. You need to take maybe a transformation decision. Or else we can recruit some of the technical experts or some of the departments or organizations segments, we can close down directly. To take that decision, the segmental information is a vital information for stakeholders. Right? That's the benefit. Organization maybe organization like a diversified organization. You are producing sometimes food, right? Food manufacturing organization, and parallelly you are giving some other maybe products, cosmetic products. You are having another chain of service, right? You have to have separate segment in your disclosures. Let's say you are doing type of a hospital, Lanka Hospital PLC, Hema Hospital PLC. Take one of the segment, hospital. In a hospital, what are segments they are having? They are having operations separately. They are having pharmaceutical items selling that shops separately, and then laboratory service separately, and then accommodation separately. If we are having rent or something like that, separately. So then we are having overall income segment wise. We need to understand the loss or profitability, and when this is the financial statement and the cash flow, right? That's the main purpose of having segmental information. Make a corporate reporting mission. ඒකේ උනම් ඩිග්‍රී මිස් වෙනවා. ඩිග්‍රී මිස් වෙනවා ලයිෆ් එක මිස් වෙනවා. ඒක තමයි මේක ලේසිම ටොපික් එක. මේක නිකන් ටික් මාක් දාගෙන ඇවිල්ලා තේරුම් නැතුව පාස් ලකුණු ගන්න පුළුවන් ඒරියා එකක්. Why? You want to identify what are the reportable segment. That's your role. You may have set of segments will be given, right? Then your role is to identify what are the reportable segments. For that, standard clearly instructed to identify what are the reportable segments. We are having quantitative threshold to identify. So here I am discussing what are the steps we have to follow once you identify operating reportable segment. So you can understand now step by step how we are going to identify these segments, right? Right. Okay. Here we are having operating segment. Operating segment. Then aggregation criteria, right? Aggregation criteria. Then quantitative threshold. Then reportable segments. They are having operating segments in the organization. We may have operating segment, maybe 150 operating segment. Yes. Sorry. Screen share. Right. Okay. So operating segments, aggregation criteria, quantitative threshold, reportable segments. Right. In organization, you may have maybe 150 segments. 150 segments. Those are reportable segments. Sorry, operating segment. Operating segments mean those segments. Chief decision makers of the organization. Chief decision makers of the organization consider that as separate segment, right? Separate segment for their decision making. They are earning separately. Their expenses, income can be identified separately. If it is so, we identify that as an operating segment, right? These operating segments may be newly identified things or some matured segments may be there. Right? Wow. Wow, company ka පටන් ගන්නවා. You are starting with 4 segments. Now you are having 150 segments. That's an improvement. Daily you are doing innovations. You are starting some new businesses. Once we are having COVID, you started to, prepare masks, right? You started to produce sanitizer. With the economic change, environmental change, you are being innovative. You are producing new things for the society. If it is so, your operating segments can be expanded. Right? One daily make expand enough. So the operating segment is good in item. The operating segment good in item. Serum reportable segment when operating segment ගොඩක් තියෙනවා company එක. මොකද කරන්න ඕන? operating segment ගොඩම නිකන් financial statement වල නිකන් මොකද කියන්නේ? පැදුරක් වගේ දිගට segment එක දානවා. It may not be relevant for stakeholders. Some of the segments just started. Some of the segment started, now it's not working. But segment is there. Why we are disclosing those things? Don't need, right? It is not necessary. It is irrelevant, right? Because of that, we are having this guideline, this standard. What we need to do? Once we are having many operating segments, next step, you can aggregate some of the things.
Yeah.
You can accumulate, you can add together, you can collect some of the segment. Have what a segment එකතු කරනවා කියලා what cheese and butter and ice cream and tire එකතු කරන්න බෑ. What a segment දෙකක්. One segment is tire production, one segment is ice cream production. You can't merge that. Why? Two different products, two different customers, two different supply chains. To do aggregate, it should be a similar nature, similar production chain, similar type of customers, similar nature. If it is so, you can aggregate. You can aggregate sometimes with soap with maybe washing powder. Washing powder with sometimes with some cosmetic items, right? You can mix with sanitizer with perfume, right? You can aggregate, but you can't aggregate Siddhartha with ice cream. Siddhartha with ice cream is the segment aggregate to the pen of mother. Siddhartha plus ice cream. It is not, it can't be aggregate. I believe it. Yeah, lecture room can name not easy. Lecture කරනවා කියනවා sir ඉන්නෝ පේනවා ඔන්නට යන්නේ නැහැ වගේ හිතනවා. පාඩ පේනවා මොනවා හරි මොනවා හරි ඇහෙනවා ඒක ලීක් වෙන්න ඕන මයින්ඩ් එක. අනේ ලීක් එක තමයි නේද? ඉතින් වැඩක් නැහැ ඇටෙන්ඩන්ස් වැඩක් නැහැ මුකුත් වැඩක් නැහැ. මොකද අර ලීක් එක තමයි දෙකේ. ඉතින් කියන්නේ in English concentration. In Buddhism සමාධි. ඒකද සිහියෙන් ඉන්නවන හොඳට මේ concentrate කරන්න. Right? I hope you are getting this is easy. Right? Aggregation criteria. Then you aggregated some of the segments. You aggregated. You are aggregating. Maybe you are doing dairy production. You are producing sometimes fresh milk, yogurt, ice cream, and some tea toffee or milk toffee, I don't know, toffee or some sweets items. Different items are there, right? So you are going to aggregate. You are going to aggregate. To do that, in the standard, we are having aggregation criteria. Why? එකතු කරලා පෙන්නන්න පුළුවන්. After doing aggregation, what's the next step? You are having quantitative threshold. Quantitative threshold. You can ask the question, why standard is so strict? They have given threshold. Is that relevant for each and every organization? Yes, it is. It is a minimum guideline. It's the minimum guideline. Why? If they are not giving, this information will be very customized. To enhance the comparability of this information, the standard letters have given quantitative threshold. Standard again, threshold here is the other. Make possible quantity. Baaki number passe make matter. Quantitative threshold. Standard clearly given quantitative threshold. 10% of total assets. 10% of 10% of revenue. 10% of profitability. Right? 35% of external revenue. These are the four quantitative threshold. Just have a look. You can understand what it is. Right? The quantitative threshold to identify reportable segment. Once you are doing a question only, you can understand what's the scenario. 10% of total asset. That's the benchmark. 10% of revenue. 10% of profitability. Profitability means we need to calculate profit and loss together and identify it. Right? 75% of external revenue. Up until this, we need to recognize reportable segments. These are the 4 criteria. 4 criteria. අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මොකක්ද කරන්නේ? අපේ හරිය කියන්නේ එක්සෑම් එකට එනකොට. ඒ අන්තිම පාරේ එක්සෑම් එකට එන්නේ. මනේ අතේ ලියන් එනවා කියලා කියන්නේ in other words හිතේ ලියන් එනවා. Right? Okay. Right. Okay. Reportable segments. Then, after having these thresholds, you are ending with, you can identify what are the reportable segments. You don't want to be, you are having operating segment 150, you are having reportable segment maybe 75. After aggregation, after contingency threshold, by putting these filters, you are ending with 75 reportable segments. 150 we are having operating segments. Your duty is to identify what are the reportable segments. That's it. That's it. I hope it's clear. One more doubt that you know. Any doubts? Further survey. The mono to make me identify the first answer. You identify reportable segment. Next step. For this 75 segments, you need to give revenue, income, expenses, maybe other expenses, cash flows, everything you need to give. And the critical thing is, once you are giving this, you need to reconcile with the common balance sheet and the P&L and the cash flow. Main financial statement numbers should be tallied with these 75 numbers. So what was that? How we are going to tally with the total revenue? Can't be right. Then you need to have one column other. That's the other column. We have segments, 75 segments. Whatever the small segments, we are collating to a other segment and total tally with the income statement, right? I'm getting you. I'm keeping the paper. But then 150 operating segment here, you are identifying 75 reportable segments. So standard clearly require you need to tally, you need to cross check, reconcile with the main income statement. Otherwise, we don't have to company overall revenue this much. Out of these 75 segments, maybe 80% will be covered. You need to understand segment wise. Other part is immaterial, but need to tally with the main financial statement. Keep remember that. I hope it's clear, right? Okay, so we can go to the tube now. But tube take one of the things, right? Right. Basically, this operating segments should be given. It's a mandatory to public interested entities, right? If you remember that. Would they, or equity instruments are traded in public market, right? So, not applying to consolidate analysis statement of a group whose parent has no listed financial instrument, but includes a listed monetary interest or subsidiary with the listed debt. Not apply to a consolidated financial statement of a group whose parent has no listed financial instrument, but include a listed minority interest over subsidiary with the listed debt. So the gap means so consolidated financial statement of group, if it is not a consolidated listed entity, there's no any debt or equity instruments trading the stock market. If it is so, we are no need to give segmental information. Right? That entity shouldn't have any instrument. They are not using, they are not trading by using public market. Public is a kind of a market, like they are not issued any debt, debenture or equity instrument in a listed whatever the stock market, right? Stock market again, debt, equity issue that entity should give segmental information, if you remember that. Right? So these are the steps I discussed. Now, operating segment, aggregation criteria, quantitative threshold, reportable segments, right? What's the operating segment? These are the three features of operating segment. That is also a critical area can be tested in your exam. What is the operating segment? What's the operating segment? Not a reportable thing. As I said, they are earning the revenue, income, expense separately. Right? This criteria. So this review, this results, financial results will be reviewed by COTF. If operating decision makers, maybe CEO, maybe CFO, separately they will evaluation. Right? That's the second criteria. Third, there should be separate financial information to identify this. They are incurring expenses, income. They are earning income and incurring expense separately. That information should be generated separately. Then and there, you can identify this as a operating segment. Right? Operating segment. May features to the exam එකේදී test කරන්න පුළුවන් පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නකින්. What is a operating segment? What are the criteria? That segment should have a separate earning and expense separately. So, HR division separate operating segment and HR department. No, there's no earnings for them. Right? It's a separate admin department. Right? Marketing department. Overall company having a one marketing department. That marketing department don't have separate income. Right? They have expenses. It's a common department. Right? You should have a separate earnings, sources, and expenses. That information should be separately identified. Some are expenses, separately identified. What do you mean by this? Discrete financial information. Separately, you need to identify. Okay. I hope this is clear. Make understand step. This is operating segment. Next step, aggregation criteria. Aggregation criteria. Operating segment must be. These are three features. Make exam the bonus we can make a hand sure net. Whether make a hand probably make up this. It's like 10%, 5% probability they are to test this. And the first question. What is past paper discuss not format is. That's the exam paper format is not only. Terrible. If you know the exam paper, write a math pen on exam paper. Your corporate reporting paper, the hardest paper ever you are seeing in this, your history, your journey of learning, corporate report. Corporate reporting paper. Corporate reporting paper. First question. 20 marks, 10 questions. Right? It's 20 marks. 20 marks, 10 small question. Right? And then 2, 3. Also related question. 35 marks. Right? Fifteen marks. Right. So these are compulsory questions. These are compulsory questions. That question. Ratio analysis. You need to interpret ratios, right? You may be given 10 years ratios to interpret, right? 15 marks. Altogether, how much now? You have earned 60 or 70. Altogether, 70. 70 done. Then you have another 4 questions. Another 4 questions. Out of these 4 questions, you need to select 3 questions. 3 questions. Each we are having 10 marks. 70 plus 30, 100. Here we are testing different areas. One of that is segmental reporting. One is earning per share. One is fair value. Other one is financial instrument. Other one is agriculture. Right? Out of this four, sometimes I'm giving 5. Out of 5, you are supposed to select 3 of them. You are earning 30 marks for that. That's a selection, right? A selection. That's the format of the paper. I thought you are familiar with that. I will upload all these past papers for you all. Then you can expect. You have to have expectation about the paper. Sorry? Yeah. Yes. So we may have 15 past papers, right? You can see a revolution from last maybe 4 years. You can see a revolution. So the latest paper may be with consolidation with foreign subsidiaries, right? With complicated financial instrument. Okay. So you need to be very practical knowledge will be tested. Right. It will be under these 3 areas. Under these 3 questions, out of that, definitely segmental reporting question will be there. You can easily attempt. If you have score for earning per share and segmental reporting, already you have earned 20 marks. Right? Okay. I hope the operating segment, this can be tested under this first area. 10 small questions, 20 marks, 10 questions, so 10 small questions. So one question, 2 marks, or together 20 marks. For me, this is the hardest part. Why? To get maybe 18 marks, you are ending with A+. Ending with A+, you are scoring 18 marks. You should have proper understanding of head and tail of each and every standard. Right? Technical definitions will be tested, basically. Okay. Other areas, practical knowledge will be tested. Whether you are comfortable with social, agriculture, India, all these things will be tested under other part of the paper. Right? I hope it's clear. So this is a topic can be tested under here. This 10 small questions will be focused about what are the key elements of a operating segment. එතකොට බය වෙලා අනේ සර් දන්නේ නැහැ මේ කිව්වවත් නැහැ කියලා හිතන්න එපා. කියාගෙන එන්න එක්සෑම් එකට එනවා. Right? Okay. Who is CODM? I have not tested this in the exam. Who is CODM? Chief Operating Decision Makers. Who is that? Maybe CEO. Main person in the organizations who are taking decisions, who are doing the evaluation. CODM is a function and not necessarily a person. He may be in after kind of a person, right? It's a function. The function is to allocate resources to assess the performance of operating segments. It is likely to vary from entity to entity. The CODM role will vary from entity to entity. It may be a person, it may be a kind of a unit, it may be a committee. That's a committee who are allocating resources and evaluating performance. That's called Chief Operating Decision Making. Right? Sometimes it may be CEO. Sometimes it may be COO, Chief Operating operating officer, right? So this is the chart I want to discuss, and here we are coming to aggregation criteria. Aggregation criteria. What are the aggregation criteria? You can aggregate similar economic characteristics you need to evaluate. Similar economic characteristics. You want to aggregate operating segment before you are identifying, before you are evaluating quantitative threshold, you need to evaluate the similar economic characteristics. What are they? The nature of the products and service, the nature of the production process, the type of class of customers of their products and services, and the methods used to distribute the products, the nature of the regulatory environment if applicable. So these are the economic characteristics you need to compare with the products. That's why I told you, you can't aggregate tire with ice cream. Right? Why? It's a different production process, but same organization. Sometimes your warehouse is also very close by, but you can't aggregate it. To aggregate, it should be compliant with the aggregation criteria. Make a test karana following exam making. What are the aggregation criteria? In the segmental information question, once you are having the main question, the case study type question, you can ask, Mr. Silva is confused about the aggregation criteria. Can you advise to him? That can be tested. If you're having that type of question, you need to comply with these things. He has stuck with aggregation, with the aggregation. Sometimes he has done some aggregation with some uncommon. Without the similar characteristics, he has done some aggregation. You have to critically evaluate that. Then and there you have to consider this part. You should have this understanding. Okay. Right. So here, what is this? Quantitative threshold. Then make අලුතෙන් බලන්න එපා. කලින් බෝඩ් එකේ ලියුවේ මේක තමයි. මේ සයිඩ් එකෙන් අර අප හැදිලි අපේ බෝඩ් එකේ ලියුවේ මෙන්න මේක තමයි. What is that? 10% of profit or loss, 10% of asset, 10% of revenue, 75% of external revenue. That is quantitative threshold in the standard. As an organization, as a group, maybe you are having publicly trading instrument, you comply with this, right? This is important. I will tell you once you are doing that. Once you are getting this this profit or loss, you need to consider absolute amount. Absolute amounts mean you need to consider the negative one, negative or positive, right? Profit or loss. You need to consider as a number. Don't get loss as a negative value. So we'll try that once we are doing a question. Okay. This is important. Very important. So this is quantitative thresholds. Remember that that's a minimum requirement. Minimum requirement of disclosing. So that is the minimum criteria. If management willing to disclose something, they can voluntarily disclose that is not required to comply with quantitative threshold. Right? With the latest exam of this direction. But the they have 10 operating segments, right? According to the quantitative thresholds, they identify 4. Right? Management, the CEO want to disclose some other new segment separately. Is that what you are being about it? It is not within the quantitative threshold. It's not comply with the quantitative threshold. If it is so, CEO asking from you, can we disclose some new, very immaterial segment as an operating segment, reportable segment? Can we do that? Yes, we can do. If management will do that, they can do that information. Why? Will be a very critical information. Sometimes they are starting a TV channel, right? They are starting a TV channel. So they have invested. They just initiated only 1 month, right? Only 1 month. Revenue maybe very just less than 10% of total revenue. That starting a TV channel is a separate information that will be a relevant information to all stakeholders in the market. So then and there, management can use further information for their purpose. Means quantitative thresholds are minimum required. Right? Keep remember that. Not take up quantitative thresholds are only the minimum required. Operating segment that do not meet any of the quantitative thresholds may be considered for reportable and separately disclosed if management believes that information about the segment would be useful to users of the financial statements. If management believes that it's relevant information to stakeholders, they can give very new minimal operating segments as reportable segments. That was mentioned in very recent exam. Right. 75% threshold. So you can see aggregation here in a garment manufacturing company, partner manufacturing, hangers, threads. We combine that as accessories, right? Aggregation. The disclosures. Can you do this question, please? Here we have example. You can try this. What you need to do, X Limited has identified the following business components. These are the X Limited having these operating segments. What you supposed to do? You need to identify reportable segments. Reportable segments. Now, not given questions, no? Yes. Can you do this quickly? Over the gun. How many segments you are having? Operating segments? 4, right? Operating segments. Now we are going to check the quantitative threshold, right? So profitability 10%. Total asset 10%. Revenue 10%. Right? What we supposed to do is we know total assets. Total assets, out of total assets, segment 1, what's the percentage? You need to mention the percentage here. Yeah. 57%. Right. 57%. 34%. 4.5%. Three point 4%. Right. What I'm going to do here, this asset, right? I hope this is clear. Anyone who can't do this? Total revenue, total asset divided by particular segment asset. What we are checking? Check whether is that more than 10%. 10% criteria. It was making chart the chart is more than 10%. More than 10%. More than 10%. More than 10%. These are not
But how to find this percentage?
right? So after completing this, you need to identify more than 10%. What are the segment? Here we have evaluated continental threshold, right? Pre-continental threshold. 10% criteria, 10. So you can understand segment 1 is an operating segment. Segment 2 is operating segment. For these three criteria, segment 3 and 4 are not operating segments. No. If this is getting maybe 10%, this will be an operating segment. Only one criteria should be satisfied. That's very important. You can mark the criteria is satisfied. Make a 10 this will be an operating segment. One criteria should be satisfied. I'm coming to the next criteria, 75% rule. 75% rules. Still we can't complete that. We need to test it again further. What is that? after doing this exercise for these three criteria, you need to check further thing. That's a 75% criteria. So whatever the identified reportable segment should represent 75% of external revenue from the total revenue. If it is not, you need to identify further segments. Remember that. What I'm telling here, identified segments, what are they? 1 and 2. Identified segments. These two segments should represent 75% of external revenue of the organization. The MEAG total revenue value, external revenue percentage in balance made. Get the total revenue, get the external revenue of this two segments. How much is the total revenue? How much is the total revenue? Total revenue means internal plus external. 286. 286. These two segments, how much they have externally? They have operated external sales only. Sorry, 160, right? 160 divided by 160 divided by 286. How much? 160 divided by 286. 55%. 55%. It is less than 75%. It is less than 75%. Then your judgment, your argument is what? You can't stop with 2. You need to recognize further segments. Till it's come to 75, you need to recognize further segments. Make criteria satisfy natural segment recognition. Why? External revenue, minimum external revenue, 75%. You need to give separate segments. What do you mean by that? Why is that standard is so much of specified for that external revenue? What's the reason for that? You can understand that and you can remember that as parent. That's not the case, right? If that audit committee asks, what's the meaning of having 75% role? Why is that given? As an organization, external revenue is the critical aspect. Internal revenue means we are selling to subsidiary. That is not generating a separate thing. It is inside the organization. We want to see the external revenue, how much. At least, if we can't, giving separate information for segments, at least for 75% of external revenue, that's not that much useful. If we want to have proper understanding for the organization, at least we want minimum external revenue 75%. Separately. That's why it was given strictly in the standard. Yeah. 75% of external revenue is given. And 75% total revenue making. External revenue will not 75%. Out of external revenue, not out of external revenue. External revenue should be 75% out of total revenue. Right? External revenue. Whatever the identified segment should be represented external revenue out of 75% of external out of total revenue. Okay. Right. Then your judgment at this and test that again 75% criteria. If not at this, again test that. If it is not satisfying, you are supposed to recognize all 4 segments as operating reportable segments. Keep remember that. At this, section 3 gonna. Section 3 gonna to reportable segment external revenue yes, external revenue how much 20 20 add करना में 180 divided by 286 180 divided by 286 sorry 180 divided by 286 again 62 is still less than 75%. Then what we have to do? Again and again till 75%. We need to recognize reportable segment. We are recognizing 4 as well. Right? Then and there, you need to mention that even 4 operating segments should be recognized as reportable segment in this entity. Two segments, they are matching with 3 quantitative thresholds. According to the 75% rule, we recognize other 2 segments as reportable segments. If you want to put a statement, put like this. Right? As per LFRSA, write it. As per LFRSA. We considered quantitative threshold to identify reportable segments. To identify reportable segments. Okay. So 1 and 2 segments are satisfied with quantitative threshold of profit, asset and revenue. Profit, asset and revenue. Profit, asset and revenue. However, both 1 and 2 segments represent less than 75% external revenue. Less than 75% external revenue. How much? It's all about 55%. Within that 55% less than 75%. Right? Because of that, we recognize other 3-4 segments as reportable segments. According to the 75% rule. For normal absent, right? Now we are going to past papers. Okay. See this, you can see the past paper. I'll come. Yeah, it can be 2 questions or 3 questions, right? 2 questions or 3 questions. Here, selection 2 questions. 2 questions mean 1 question will be given 15 marks for 30, right? So this is the, you can see, these are the 10 small questions. 10 small questions. What are the terms? I think it is okay. How is the term calculated as well? Okay, yes. 33. Have we done term? No clue about terms. We did. I guess 33, I guess. Right? Where we calculate term? Once you are having. Where we are calculating term? Having right issue. At the right issue, once you are calculating earning per share, we need to calculate term. So here we tested. You are familiar? No. You need to. Yeah. Nothing. And all the things you need to learn in this course, right? Only 1 question you can attempt here. And then consolidation. Console. And here, mama ratios tika dena aapko what interpret karane karane ratios to given. Earning per share. This is the segmental information question. I think you are okay with this. Right? Here, segmental information question in the exam. What we discuss here will be tested in the exam. That's why I told you. Super Plastic PLC is a leading plastic production manufacturing company in Sri Lanka. Mention management identify below mentioned operating segments for the performance evaluation of the entity. Given numbers are for the year ended 31st December 2024 in millions. Total revenue we are having toothbrush, flower vase, wash basins, rooms, hangers, and plastic chairs. Right. One of the executive directors, Mr. Dulanjan Jain, is not willing to disclose segmental information in the financial statements because of sensitivity to competition. In that, the segmental information they have the management. Samana they have the What's the reason? We are giving unnecessary disclosures. What's that? The segmental information is too much sensitive. Some of the organizations, they are having within the organizations different segments having different tax rates. Different segments having different tax rates within the organization. Company tax rates දෙකක් තියෙනවා නම් මොකද කරන්නේ? Are you getting me? Whatever the higher tax rate එකට අපි bill කරනවාද හැම එකම. Higher tax rate එකේ ඒවට කොහොමද දාන්නේ? 0% tax rate එක. Example, if you are doing a dairy manufacturing company, yogurt is normal tax rate 30%, right? If you are doing fresh milk, concessionary tax rate. ඔයාලා මොකද කරන්නේ? yogurt sale එකේ sale එකක් කොහොමද bill කරන්නේ? fresh milk විකුණන විදිහට once you are giving segmental information, that will give us more information to the internal revenue department to identify that. Right? By using segmental profit of fresh milk, you can calculate the tax. If you have done erroneous calculation, that will pick it up. Your sensitive information will be disclosed. Because of that, management is not willing to do this. Very difficult to convince. That type of CFO is there in the organization. Right? That's the nature. So here it will be requested this request. What is that? Advise the management SP to identify reportable segment, disclose in finance statement and types of information that should be disclosed for the year ended 2024. What are the types of information? What are the reportable segment? Right? Main question is part දෙකක් තියෙනවා. Reportable segment විතරක් identify කරලා නවතුනා නම් 4 marks only. Right? The management SP to identify the reportable section. Advise to identify the reportable sections and financial and types of information that should be considered should be disclosed. What are the revenue, expenses, cash flow, cash inflow, and maybe total asset. All this information should be disclosed. So the make answers they got for 7 marks. But මොකද වෙන්නේ? මෙන්න මේ and දෙක වාට අමතක වෙනවා. exam එකේදී මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේ and එක අමතක කරනවා. මම මේක හදන ඉවරලා පොඩි drill එකක් හිටවන්න මේක කරලා දුන්නා. first part එක. ඒතකොට ඒක අමතක වෙනවා මේ part. Most of the students lose these 3 marks. 4 marks for segmental information identification, 3 marks for information. You need to do this too, right? And advise Mr. Jurajan on requirement of segmental information and the related benefits. 4 marks. Requirement. If it is a listed entity, it's a must. That should be mentioned. And benefits. You need to mention that it will be very useful for stakeholder decision. Right? You can understand non-performing segment. You can take different decisions. You can take customized decision for separate particular segments if you are having segmental information. That's a requirement. That's a benefit. You need to mention that, right? Final question. Discuss aggregation criteria which can be used to aggregate operating segment for the consideration of reportable segment. Discuss aggregation criteria can be used. Aggregation criteria. The last question. 4 marks. Aggregation criteria just 5 minutes back we discussed. You need to mention that to customize to the case study and you can earn 4 marks. So this type of question can be tested in the exam. You have a question? Yes. Sales report. And now they are not charged. You all are report. You can't go in there. Definitely disclose. Are you ready for this type of question? I hope so. Other ready that time, exam में लगा ready नहीं होते. Then ready that time वहाँ make it. Exam में कितना पाड़ा कराने पास से वाले यार वो आठ किलो के पास से ready नहीं होते. और then ready तो किला हम लोग. और यार वो भी then मतलब पास से ready भी मैं then ready भी मैं then. Then ready that time वहाँ exam में readiness. Can you do this question now? Quickly make कराने. Exam कितना टंगा करना Question quickly. Write exam. Then one करना mistake इनको मुकात पे question देंगे. अमूल्य पकड़ने मुकात. मैं पिक सेर मुआ पाँच पे के लिए. मैं पिक दाला, मैं बेहतर दाला, मैं बेहतर. मैं numbers पिक आए सेर पे के लिए. That is not required. You remember that. What you have to do? Put this chart and develop your percentage chart. Right? Get the total, put the percentages like this. Don't repeat this in your paper. Don't take time. It is there in the paper, right? The examiner won't test this again repeating in your answer sheet. Develop this type of a table and put the percentages, please. Are you getting me? Well, that's the one make for the area. Don't do that in the exam. Time is very limited in the exam. No. एक मिक्स करा देने को डेसिकेट कराने बैठेगा क्या चीज़ देखो ना देख कराने बैठेगा मतलब एक बोल देगा इंटेंशन भी करा के दस मिनट सेपरेट देगा किसी सेपरेट दे we can start this हमको होटेलिया टैग හිතන්න ළමයි તો තියෙන කාලේ තමයි කොන්සෝල් හදලා කොන්සෝල් ගණන් හදන්න නැතුව ලයිට් එකක් නැහැ කොන්සෝල් ගණන් හදන්න පෑන් දෙකක් අරන් කොළ අරගෙන පොත් අරගෙන ඉන්නවා ඒතකොට තමයි ඉන්නෝනේ ජීවිතේ කවදාවත් සෙට් එකකින් කියන්නේ නැහැ කියන කොහෙද ඒ ළමයිට තියෙන කාලේ නෝ කොන්සෝල් ගණන් හදලා මේවට නම් දියන්න ඕනේ නැහැ ඒක සෑම වෙලේ යන කලින් දවසේ කාගෙන යන්නේ අගේ පුට්ටා කතේ ලියාගෙන ගියා හදන්න දෙනවා. කොලේ ඉලයත් කොලේ අමුණත් ඒකද? කොලේ ලියාගෙන අමුණත්. අපිරිලා. Yeah, exactly. That's too much. That's too much. So put that photo to the your group, right? Then people can get access. Otherwise, open the LMS. I have not uploaded that to the LMS. Sorry. I will upload all passwords to your LMS. I was noting your. Is there any particular group for the subject? No. I can happy group corporate reporting. I can do all these updates. Yes. Statement data, the idea is not satisfaction. And is there some satisfaction? Data comes be identified as the and data separate but because the identified because three criteria. Have they reached 75% of total revenue and external revenue? Once I take that, what is the identified segment? So, only 6%, 55%. So, another one. And take this more than 75, still not. So, again, the remaining one. B, whole they close separately. The here, after getting match, old four still not 50%. 75. So what target make a tower segment people Ega reportable in the identified opportunity. Right? External revenue is the critical factor for the organization. Not internal revenue. At least we can't show that 75% of external revenue has separate items. It's useless. Stakeholders will confuse. First, we can school building, but under 75% criteria, we are getting 3 and 4. Not first two segments, if represent 75%, what we are going to do, how we are going to display. First separate, second separate, other two adding as one other. Right? Now we can't see that. You should show display all four separate now. All are reportable segment. We are reporting one separate segment. Go to some kind of segment and reporting is close. Understand what is the requirement, what the exact no. අපි report reportable. දැන් මේ තුන බලන්න ඉන්නකො බැලුවා. අන්තිම දෙකේ satisfied. ඊපස් තව එකක් තියෙනවා කියන්නේ. ඒක විතරයි අර identify කරලා තියෙන section representation අපි identify නොකරපු දෙයක් ඒකේ ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක තාක්ෂණික පාඩම. ඒකෙන් දැන් මෙතන අපි දැන් try කරන්නේ ටිකක් ගන්න 20,000 different. One was 20,000, 10,000 people. 20 speech. Very good. First, second, and third. The second and third that made same criteria check again देखा और first three criteria तुमने एक first three criteria full match किया है and 75% would be recognized right. Any doubts, any questions? Divided by 286. Then that color one. They are not satisfied. Right. Other three criteria are pretty straightforward. Next question. 55% is the overall price. Can you do this quickly? Please. Right. I hope you are with the question, right? We are not doing now. So you can see after evaluating all these criteria, all the segments are portable segments. So this criteria satisfy all the segments. If it is so, you can easily go into this 75% rule. Examiner given this percentage, right? All the segments are operating segments by 1%. No. How much? It's how much? 12 meet more than 10, right? 12, that is another day. More than. So total assets. Total assets.
The question says
Hangers. Oh, what's basic? Hangers 16 of 16 divided by Hangers total assets.
16 question, right?
Question 7. 16A, 1P, B, 10P, 70P, etc. Right?
So you can have 60 years. 60 years.
Rule 16, Hangers 50. What is there? If I can moderation, this is the paper I'm uploading, but I update this is the paper I issue. Sometimes moderator can change the numbers. Don't worry about that, we'll see that. Take the time. Mama make color sugar paper. Update कराने के
second March.
update now complicated, right? So then here we have what Kamkari needs to know. Kamkari needs to know that Vegas at soon as that is 9 or 75% rule in the team current. All we can change this to 12, right? We can change it to 12. Make up it 12 karega. Then what's the repercussion? If it is 12, this won't be a portable segment. Then what we have to do? We need to take the 75% rule. Check whether this is a reportable segment. Calculate the external revenue. Calculate the external revenue. Then calculate the 75% rule. External revenue come with out of 50 external revenue, 25. 25. 32. How much is this? 60%. What we have to do? Making external revenue kochara taking amount take then 50% now external revenue here 25, right? Making 80 now here 32 out of 40 32. Get that external revenue total. That's external revenue total. Except that segment H. Others we are going to report. Right? Get that total divided by total revenue. Matal clear 60%. Then we need to recognize H as well. Are you okay? That is not complicated, very straightforward, right? We are going to do complicated console and financial instrument tomorrow. Tomorrow means next day. This is pretty straightforward. Preschool work is there. Right? There's nothing complicated. Yeah. And significant segment, we need to be once we are delivering information, it should be relevant. Relevant means critical, it should be critical. Otherwise, if you are splitting internal things, no point. External revenue is critical. Once you are displaying something, if you are disclosing, it should be relevant. Yeah, we have to identify what are significant segment. That's the basic understanding. We are getting two factors we are considering: the significance and relevant. If it is internal revenue, it is not relevant. External revenue is a critical factor. The stakeholders are looking at external revenue. Then we need to consider significance, the amount, materiality, as well as the relevance. External revenue. According to the significant factor, we have two. We take that. I put in this two. These are significant, but internal revenue they are having. External revenue they are having other two segments. They are having external segments. No, because I have why reason the last having critical components. Having external components, it is the key drivers of the organization. They are earning external money. वागे family के हाय देने की family के हाय देना लोगों वाला business में पटन या starting business वाह ये तो भी कुछ ना करना मालिक कुछ ना साथ करना you are having internal revenue as a family you don't have any outsource अबे मालिक कोड़ी करना चले नहीं भी कुछ ना साथ करना that's very important that's the show we can accelerate so if you are separately particularly they are showing separate if there is something happen that that is the critical stakeholders already critical. Why? Because of criteria, size, because of the size, because of the quality, and two are important. Anything else? Right. Put that 75% rule for this exam question. That's very important. And identify. Try to give all this exam question as one document and practice it like 30%. I hope this will be very easy question in the exam. Okay. Right. Okay, that's it. Right. I hope that two standards are done with full understanding. We have done exam expectation, all completed, right? We are starting a new standard next day. Right. Done. So today that's it.